All right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Teardown. My name is Jeff Gluck. I'm along with my coworker, Jordan Bianchi. We are motorsports writers for The Athletic, and today we're here to talk about the Texas Motor Speedway race, our favorite track on the NASCAR circuit. What a great... I am here at sweltering hot Texas, although it has cooled down a little bit. It's probably only now in like the mid 90s or something. So quite lovely.
Cool way.
So,
break out the jackets, man.
so it's so hot out that somebody after the race asked Bubba Wallace how he felt about the heat and all the stuff, and he said, "Well, it's not as hot as I am standing here right now with you guys." So.
That's true.
Apparently the car with the cool suit, I don't know. I think it is hot in there, but it was very hot outside as well. But hot action on the track as well, Jordan.
Oh, nice transition. That was very smooth.
At least by Texas standards, maybe. Was it not such a bad race for Texas?
I'm actually genuinely, I almost want to get to the conversation about the good race poll, because I don't know what to think. I could make a case either way.
Let's talk about the racing first then. I mean, if that's the hot topic, I guess.
I think so. I mean, that is the topic coming to Texas every year, and we make jokes about it all year long. And
right,
I don't think the racing per se was memorable. It certainly is not comparisons to what we've seen at Kansas and Charlotte and other intermediate type tracks. I throw Michigan in there as well. We saw, Kyle Larson win the second stage by 6 seconds, but at the end of the day, because of the cautions and how they fell and everything else, there was enough going on to kind of keep interest. And it didn't oh my God, this is Texas. Oh, there's parts of that time, but I think there was enough to break it up a little bit and enough plot twists to kind of keep the things moving along. And it wasn't like last year where it was tire failures and oh my goodness, what is going on here? This was more natural, if you will, cautions.
Yeah, and I mean, you almost kind of have to separate a large part of the race from the last 25 laps as well, because that got a little chaotic and crazy and silly at times in some ways. But, it was going to be a straightforward race pretty much. But even then, I think if it had ended on a long run, like a whatever it was, 80, 90 lap run, and Larson wins by 7 seconds, people are not going to be happy, of course. But and I say this is by Texas standards, okay? So
it's a low bar. It couldn't be a lower bar in the sport than what Texas bar is.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, you could probably an ant could step over the low bar here in Texas. But again, by Texas standards, though, it was fine. I mean, again, it wasn't great, but I didn't think it was bad. It was just fine. And but again, by other mile-and-a-half standards with the next gen car, no, it wasn't. It didn't live up to that. But it wasn't like the worst race of the year. Even if the Yaley thing hadn't happened and Larson had gone on to win, is that the worst race of the year? I don't think so.
Not off the top of my head. I mean, it's probably in the bottom 3 or 4, maybe. But I'm hard pressed to remember a worse one right now. But I'm sure there has been.
Okay. Well, yeah, and I guess we can just get into what it's kind of funny because I think at first, like after the repave, there was you had some people in the driving corps still people in the sport, there's sort of this hesitation of well, let's see how it ages, or, let's see, maybe it'll get racier, or they'll do this to it. And once it sort of became obvious that the track was pretty much ruined with the sticky stuff, and that turn 1 and 2 is so weird and in the first place. And now everybody just openly just dumps on it. They're like, yeah, this place sucks. What are they going to do? So
justifiably so.
Yeah, well, that's so. But the question is, so what does Texas do? And by the way, if you don't mind for a second, I did ask people to tweet out this morning, because these are people who obviously they know what Texas is, and they still decide to pay a lot of money to come to this race, sit out in 106-degree heat index in metal bleachers, And, you know, they wanted to support their track. And there was actually a really good crowd here today. I mean, I'm not even kidding. Like, there was more people than I would have thought based on the heat and based on Texas. And it just sort of reminded me, this is a market that cares, is a good market. These people wanted to support their home track, support NASCAR, even though, you know, it's not the best product. They still came out. So I asked them in the tweet up, like, so what do you guys want to be done? Not one person that, you know, at least that I talked to, were like, oh, it's fine, just don't do anything. Like, they all wanted something done to it. So even the people that support the track and it's their home track, you know, and the most common thing was, could you just figure out a way to like reconfigure turns 1 and 2, to sort of match turns 3 and 4. Turns 3 and 4 are fine. It's turns 1 and 2 that are problems. So, you know, maybe they could do that. You know, there's been stuff bandied around about, oh, could it become, you know, a shorter track or some sort of short track? People are like, you know, maybe. I didn't really hear anybody clamoring for another Atlanta as well.
No.
And the drivers definitely don't want that.
That ship has sailed.
Has it? I don't know.
I mean, you tell me. I haven't heard that it's going in that direction. I've heard.
You never know though what SMI is going to do.
You never know. So. I mean, it definitely feels like they've gone through a lot of blueprints or ideas, and you know, one time there was serious consideration about kind of moving to an Atlanta type track. From what I understand, it feels like that's out the window. Like, that's not what NASCAR wants. It's not what the industry wants. It sounds, from what the conversation I had, is, you know, if you're going to do something, you're going to modify turns 1 and 2. You're going to do something over there to the banking, to how it's laid out. You're going to, you know, basically redo it. You're not maybe necessarily going to do a whole reconfiguration. You're just going to kind of focus on 1 and 2.
You know, it's another one of these places that, even though it's a 1.5 mile track, this property feels absolutely massive. It feels like, you know, a Fontana-like footprint where it's huge. And, you know, in recent years, have you been here? I can't remember.
No, okay, I don't think I'm allowed on the grounds, actually.
Oh, okay, I see. So it used to be that when you came to Texas, you would get off sort of like the main highway, and then you'd just drive far out. I mean, unless you took the interstate, but, you know, coming from the airport where a lot of people stay, the airport area, you just kind of drive and drive and drive and drive. And then the speedway kind of popped up, and there was really nothing around there. Now, across the street, I mean, you've got everything. You've got hotels, you know, you've got restaurants. I think there's a Buffalo Wild Wings, an In-N-Out, a Buc-ee's. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. And then what really struck me this time was, even on the road where you used to drive and there would just be nothing, that is now all the way to the track, built up with stuff. And there's, just this time I noticed, there's a huge new apartment complex going up sort of right across the highway from the track. So now this land is increasingly valuable, right? And I'm not saying at all that they would do something where they would sell it off, but the opportunity is here to really make this a special place. It's a great market. Again, like I just said earlier, the fans care. The track is not good for racing. So what do you do? I think that the best bet, and probably the cheapest thing to do, and again, it's not my money, but if they could, again, try to figure out something that turns 1 and 2, make it, you know, take advantage of what the next gen does right now. Don't build another short track, because as much as I love short tracks, I don't have a lot of confidence that racing is going to get better. And, you know, just hope that you have another great place. And I also think they really have to put some money back into the track facility wise. It's aging. It is very aging. It's showing that it sits most of the year with one race and gets baked in the sun, and just feels like not a lot of upkeep. So I would like to see, as part of sort of like a rebranding of Texas, or whatever it is, if they could sort of modernize and refurbish a lot of the facility as well, I think that would be good. You know, it's some of the tweet up today was like, you know, we pay all this money for parking, and the parking lots are crumbling. All the roads are crumbling. And I experienced that myself. You know, it's like, whoa, this is yikes. But, you know, again, it's a huge property, so it's a lot of money. But anyway, that was a huge tangent. Sorry, I didn't mean to get so off
No,
track.
it's not a take, but you make a good point. And this is something that the drivers themselves have said. And this was a huge talking point a year ago, really kind of around the All-Star race time, about from drivers, which was where is this money that this track is generating from, from hosting a NASCAR race? All this millions of dollars. Where is this? What are you doing to make this facility better and improvement on, upgrades, infrastructural upgrades that you need? And there's a lot of frustration among people. Like, this is just kind of this once glamorous showcase facility has been allowed to just kind of recede. And it's unfortunate because this market is too valuable. This Dallas-Fort Worth market is one of the most populous in the United States. In terms of media markets, it's incredibly valuable. It is a huge racing market in general. You have to have a race here. You have to. Not only do you have to have a race, you have to have a race at a venue that is worthy of this. When you look at other venues in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you've got the Cowboys Stadium. You've got where the Mavericks and the Stars play, which is considered a good arena.
Rangers brand new baseball stadium is
brand new, exactly. Both SMU and TCU have got brand new or recently new stadiums that they put a lot of money into. Like, you have to keep up. You have to spend the money to keep up.
Hell, high school stadiums. Some of the high school stadiums around here are beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so you look at other tracks on here. You look at what Daytona's done, or Talladega, Richmond, Phoenix. Those tracks, you can see the upgrades. And even like a Martinsville, which is older and I would say a little bit worn, but it's not bad. I don't understand. And there does seem to be a disconnect of where this is. And I know there's a lot of frustration in the industry about this because you can't allow this to continue. And you saying that there are more people here this weekend is fantastic. That is a hugely encouraging sign. And that's great. But you got to keep that up and you got to keep them coming back. I know they have a new track president. I believe this is his first year. It seems like what he's doing is kind of working, but you've got to figure out the infrastructural stuff, regardless of what the racing is. There's no excuse for that stuff. And then the racing product here, I mean, it feels like we could just replay our conversations from the last 4 years about what this kind of race is. And at some point, you got to commit to a plan and stick with it and find a workable solution.
Well, the schedule seems to keep changing, but it seems like there's a lot of momentum to have this in the spring.
It's going to be
next year. So, that could change things as well. We don't know, what that will do attendance wise, but I think getting this out of the playoffs, honestly, would be fine. I'm not saying it doesn't deserve to have a playoff race, but
it doesn't.
The way the track races and, it's just, I think there's probably better playoff tracks. And again, when you have it this time of the year, the heat is a pretty big factor, as we saw today. So
I would agree with you on the playoffs. And I say this because there is more of a microscope, if you will, on tracks in the playoffs, where if something goes wrong, like we saw last year or whatever, the racing isn't good, you're under the gun more and you're going to have to answer questions. If you get this out of the playoffs and you put this in the spring, which is what's going to happen next year, you don't have to answer those questions a little bit. And I do think the 10 races in the playoffs should be the bet. One, those tracks should challenge drivers, whether it's a road course, whether it's a Kansas, whether it's Homestead or Martinsville, those kind of places. And two, they have to be showcase races, tracks where they put the best display of NASCAR, where you turn in and say, wow, that's great. That's what I want to see. And I don't think that this is a representation of that. So getting it out of here, I think will alleviate some of that pressure a little bit and some of that blowback that they face.
Well, let's talk about what happened in the race today. Bubba Wallace starts off, and by the way, I mean, he led 111 laps today. Previous best in his career was 80 laps, and that was at Richmond earlier this year. That was a short track. So when you go back to an intermediate track, I think the most he had led was 50-something laps. That was his Kansas win last fall. So really, I mean, this was a race that was really big for him. Now, unfortunately for him, both stages, at the end of the stages, he sort of fades back and loses track position and really only comes away with a few stage points. which really hurt him. But then you go, well, okay, maybe he's still going to win the race. But once he doesn't, it ends up putting him below the cut line by 2 points. Now, I mean, it was still a solid day. He finished third, but it just goes to show you when you come into the playoffs with no playoff points, you are at such a deficit that you really can't let the stage points slip through your fingers, because even with a third place finish after the first race of the round, he's still below the cut line. And boy, was he upset with himself after the race, for just, he just felt like he blew it on the last restart with Chase Briscoe. William Byron, the eventual winner, is able to get by him while he's battling with Briscoe, get by both of them. And Byron essentially sails away and wins the 300th race for Hendrick Motorsports.
What did you think of the decision in stage one to pit Bubba Wallace late? Basically kind of forego stage points, which would probably been 10, because 9, 10, he was leading at the time, so he would have gotten something. I thought it was a bad decision, because I thought in their position where they came in, I get it, you're going for the win and you have an opportunity, but I think getting stage points is huge. Get as many points as you can get, and I do think it would have cycled back around a little bit. His day wasn't going to be shot. He still would have been in contention per se. I was curious about that decision there.
In the moment, I was like, man, they just gave up a lot of stage points. But at the same time, he ended up, getting back to the front. And, at the end of the race, he was in a position where he potentially could have won the race. So it's not like
done that. Yeah, couldn't he though?
I don't know. I would have to go back and watch to see what would have happened, where he would have come out. Would he have not been able to have the opportunity to get back to the front as easily had he pitted later and stayed out at that time? I in the moment right now, I can't really picture it, but yeah. I mean, it's a valid point, but I still think it comes down to, in their position, you probably do have to be aggressive in trying to go for the win. And especially when you feel like you have a potentially winning car, they had a shot at it. And so if you have a car that you're like, man, we could win with this, but let's go for stage points to be conservative. Ugh. See, I really don't like that either. So I understand where you're coming from. I'm not sure. I don't have a strong take on that, but I would say it wasn't the wrong call, just based on, at the end of the race, they were up there and they had a shot. So
yeah, they had a great weekend. Let's not discount that. I mean, he started on the pole. Bubba ran a really, really good race in challenging conditions, managed the race, really didn't make any mistakes. I mean, you could have gotten a better restart at the end, but I don't think that's a mistake per se. Just a really good, overall, a great day for this team. Exactly what they needed in terms of points. Now they're very much in the discussion, going to one of their best tracks where they're going to have an opportunity to win the race and get stage points. And hopefully for their sake anyway, is that, if other guys have misfortune, they're going to have an opportunity to strike there. So I mean, this was a really great day. One of their best, maybe the best all around race weekends for them all season.
Yeah. And certainly when you lead a career high number of laps and you get the pole and all that stuff, there's a lot of positives. He just wasn't feeling super positive at the end there, but yeah. And I agree with you. I mean, look, Talladega, whether he wins or not, if you can run up front, get stage points, don't crash somehow, and you get a top 10, you go to the Roval with some sort of cushion, because other people are going to crash. I mean, yeah, he could. He just has to be above the cut line going to the Roval. He can't be below the cut line and expect to do what he did at Bristol and be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to race my way back in. So, yeah, he's in a good spot. Now, a lot of people, how it is on Twitter. People are going to, people blaming him for the Kyle Larson incident.
No, people are really blaming him?
Yes.
What? Like, under what
justification? Because it's Bubba.
Okay, but like, besides it being Bubba, like, what is their justification?
Well, there's not any real justification, but it says their DARFs, as people would say. Yeah, now, funny enough, so I had asked him about you follow NASCAR memes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
On Instagram. Yes. Yeah. It's hilarious. My second favorite NASCAR account.
To who?
NASCAR Chasm. Yeah.
So yeah, on NASCAR memes this week, there was a meme where it was like, Bubba Wallace will never win a race. And it was I think it was crossed out or something. And then it was like,
Yep.
Bubba Wallace will never win a race under green. Bubba Wallace will never make the playoffs. Bubba Wallace will never make it out of the first round of the playoffs. Like all these moving the goalposts.
Just moving the goalposts. Just moving the goalposts.
So I asked Bubba about that, and he just said, moving the goalposts, and he said, it's just DARFs. Well, somehow that got, I don't know, that Fox News basically wrote an article about Bubba Wallace calls race fans dumbasses. So this is the Bubba thing, though. Like, this is what yes. So I'm not even kidding. Go look it up. It's the same guy. It's the same guy that repurposed my Dale Jr. Bluey thing, and then wrote a whole article about it without linking to my thing or mentioning where it came from or anything like that. Anyway, I love that writer. He's great. Anyway, so that's why people on Twitter obviously are blaming Bubba. But if you look at what happened with Larson, Larson is taking full. I mean, it was just a racing deal. Here's what happened. I went and talked to Cliff Daniels about why cars get sucked. Oh, did you see the headline? I just
saw that headline. I mean, like, this serves no purpose, like, at all. There's no context. There
is a purpose. He's getting clicks off it.
Worthy purpose. Let me rephrase that. Worthy purpose. We're gonna go down a rabbit hole, and that's not gonna serve anybody any good. So let's just move forward.
So listen, I went and talked to Cliff Daniels because I just said, why would the car get sucked around like that, right? So he said basically, like, in the old car that used to happen frequently, like, right?
Yeah.
Like you could suck a car around. But in the new car, it really doesn't happen very often. So much to the point that people pretty much take for granted that you can run these cars as close as you can to each other. Like, and the side force won't really suck a car around. Now at Michigan, there was a couple incidents, like the Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney thing. And I think Cliff was saying, I don't remember that. I'm sure you'll remember this. There was a Truex Busher one at Michigan too. You remember that? He was citing that as like another example of the car being sucked around or almost being sucked around by side force. Anyway, so, essentially Larson is racing without fear that the car is going to do that because these cars really haven't done that as much. And he said that when you lose that side force, it is instantaneous. It is, you have no warning. You don't get loose and it goes, it's gone. And he said even the best dirt racer in the world can't save that, right? Like and so Larson afterwards, in the interviews he did at the Care Center, I saw one posted on Front Stretch. He's like, I should have left a little bit more room. I should have been a little bit lower. Because, and Bubba said afterwards, he went in there and he's like, well, I'm not lifting. He said he's trying to listen to Larson's throttle to see if Larson's going to lift. He's like, I'm not lifting. And then he's on the high line and Bubba's like, wow, it's stuck. And then he thought that Larson was thinking too, wow, mine's stuck too. So Bubba figured they were going to go all the way around the track like that, side by side. Larson feels like had he just let Bubba sort of have that corner, he still being on the low lane would have been able to get him a couple of corners later. But worst case there, he's second. He may be passes for the win if he's a little bit more patient. He was trying to get too much. And as a result, I mean, you can't blame him there because he's going for the win. But as a result, now he's only 2 points above the cut line. Tremendously fast car, phenomenal day for them. And just these playoffs are weird. JJ Yeley spins. They're in a position where they got to race it out again. And he wrecks and finishes 31st.
And I agree with everything you said. Like, I don't, it's hard to blame Larson there in that situation. Like, you've got to win before you've got to go after it. I think, passing was not easy today. And well, if you can get ahead of somebody, you had a significant advantage and it was going to take them a lot of work to get back around you. And so you go for it in that situation, especially with that fast a race car. It's to sit here Monday morning quarterback, it doesn't feel right. Like, there's nothing he did wrong. But now, though, the reality is they are in a bad point spot. And they're also, what makes it worse, what compounds it, is the fact they're going to Talladega. And
Mhm.
Larson is not. Larson is better in these super speedway races. He's much better now since he joined Hendrick. He's kind of wrapped his head around it a little bit, but he's still not great in these races. And you also, it doesn't matter also how great you are in these races. You can be running first and somebody can get into you and crash you. And that's a bad spot to be in points wise going into a super speedway race. And you're vulnerable. That's going to be something they're going to have to. It's going to be a challenge for them. The good thing for them is the rollables after that. They've won there before. They do have speed on these kind of races, but still, it's very up in the air right now. Which again goes back to this points format, and we talked about it a lot in round one with Martin Truex Jr. Now we're talking about Larson, where this doesn't discriminate. You can be the favorite. You can have a great round. You can be the regular season champion. It doesn't matter. All of a sudden, things go sideways, and you're right on that line of being eliminated or not. We talked a lot about it with Truex. We're talking about it now with Larson. This is the reality for the next 2 weeks now of what he's going to have to do to navigate this, because it is going to be an uphill battle. And he is, even if he has a good Talladega points wise, he's probably still going to be in a spot where he can't have a bad roval race because you've used up your safety net. So it's going to be interesting to see how these manage these next 2 weeks. They have been in this position before. People forget in 2021, they were in a situation where they darn near were eliminated at the Roval, and they rallied back to win it. This team is gritty. They've got they handle these situations very well, but it just doesn't matter.
And look, I mean, this was sort of the one thing that made you a little bit hesitant about Larson going to the playoffs, is that they didn't have a lot of playoff points because they had such an up and down crazy season where they'd be like, oh, they win, and then something crazy would happen, or like they would throw a race away or whatever. They left a lot of points on the table for various reasons this year. And that's the kind of thing that shows up now when you have a day like this, where you're like, whoops, oh boy, now we got to go to Talladega. I mean, to me, you almost have to just be like, all right, let's try to get all the stage points we can. And then in stage 3, let's almost take it easy. Let's see what happens. Because are you, if you're Larson's team, are you going thinking, hey, we can win Talladega? Because I'm not going there trying to win Talladega. I think
I mean, this is going to sound counterintuitive to kind of what I was just saying. I almost don't know if you can even race for stage points, because I don't know if you want to put yourself in a position, or maybe you wait until like the last 5 laps of the stage and then you try to make your way forward. But I almost think you have to be conservative and just try to get there to the end and kind of hope that misfortune strikes other guys in the playoffs and then you can leapfrog them. I just don't know if you want to put yourself in a spot though where you're going to be in that fray all day long and you don't know what's going to happen.
I mean, the goal almost should be to hold serve. Like if I was the 5 team and I'm +2 right now, I would almost feel like, hey, if I could leave Talladega +2 going into the Roval, that would be fine. I would take that. What you don't want to be is going into the Roval down 25 or whatever, and it's like, now you're in a must win, and the only way you can do this is to go out and win this race, which I'm not saying is impossible for him at all, but you don't want to put yourself in a must win. So whatever they can, that's why I say the stage points, whatever they can do to just sort of hold serve at this point. You don't even need to have a great day. They're just not a disastrous day in some ways, because other people will have disastrous days.
Following up on your point really quick, this is just a rough calculation. It looks like Larson, that 5 team, have left 4 to 5 wins on the table this year for various reasons, whether their fault of their own, whether like Bristol Dirt, for example, where Larson kind of took himself out, or Pocono, Kansas situations where, they got into it with Denny Hamlin, or a Darlington situation with Ross Chastain. Like by my count, there is at least 4, if not 5 races this year that they should have probably won.
And then there's, fluky type things like at Dover.
Yep, good point. That's it. I didn't count Dover on my list. That's a good point.
Where he potentially had race winning speed. We don't know, but yeah. So there's just that's a
lot.
this format. And I'm glad playoff points matter, because the regular season, it's important for that to matter more. So anyway, well, speaking of somebody who also is potentially on shaky ground after we thought they were going to make the Final Four. Martin Truex Jr. yet again.
What is going on,
dude? I mean, okay, here's the thing. They were maybe going to run top 10 though. And
sure,
you know, at the end of that stage with the 1-lap shootout, he gets punted, and you know, he had flat tires, so he had to come back down twice. And I think he told Dustin Long on the video I watched afterwards that you know, it was one of those things where he thinks it might have messed up the underbody of the car a little bit, could hurt their performance. But he also said their pit stops were terrible.
That's
I mean,
the
you
thing.
could hear him on the radio, like, bad car, bad pit stops. They shouldn't have been back there. They shouldn't have been here. And here they started, you know, regular season champion who escaped elimination last week. You know, it's like he's given the second chance and going to a track where you can sort of get that bad taste out of your mouth and all this stuff. And now they have 4 straight finishes outside the top 15 to open the playoffs. I'm out at this point. I don't, because you look at what's coming up. Also, you know, we're in the same category as Larson not being great at super speedways, or you know, Truex.
For his career.
I don't feel good about him at Talladega at all. I was looking it up earlier because I was starting to write my top 5 column for the Athletic. He has, I think, 1 top 10 finish, if I'm not mistaken, 1 top 10 finish at Talladega since 2016. In the last 7.5 years, he has 1 top 10 there. So I don't feel good about him going there and getting points.
No.
And then the Roval, well, of course, you know, he can go win the Roval. He won Sonoma this year. He could do it. But again, it's not a position you want to be in. They shouldn't be in this spot. I mean, they're just they were a way better team than this. The playoffs have been a disaster. I've sort of like lost my faith that he's going to make the Final Four personally.
I'm on the same boat. Like he was one of the guys I thought was going to make the Final Four. I thought he had a really good chance to win the championship. I kind of had him as one of the co-favorites, and it's really, really hard right now to think that this team is going to salvage this. And I kind of thought that, you know, just getting out of round 1 and everything that could go wrong went wrong, and they got through it. Fresh start, going to one of your better tracks, you know, breathe, relax, just go there, just run top 10, get some stage points. You're fine. And they didn't qualify well. They qualified 16th, which is, they should be better than that. And I understand, like, you can't control when somebody runs into you inexplicably. I get it. That's not your fault. But it is your fault when you have slow pit stops. When you get back in the muck, you're going to get dirty. And that's what's happening to them a little bit. And it's a lack of execution all around. And it starts really when the minute they hit the track in practice, you know, whether it was Truex getting into the wall at Darlington, it's just not putting themselves in a position to be successful. And now they're going to a track they don't run well at. He's never won at before. He's never won a super speedway race before. He's come close, obviously, a few times, 2 very, very close finishes at Daytona, but it doesn't look like right now they're clicking. And when you look at the 5 and the 11 and throw the 24 in there, those are 3 teams that are really hitting on it right now, you know, that are really kind of week in and week out, are doing the things that they need to do to put themselves in position. And the 19 team is not. And at some point you feel like this is going to bite them in the butt. And I think in 2 races, it's going to.
Yeah, and again, I mean, he's in a decent spot right now. He's 5th in points. It's not like he's below the cut line. I think he's plus 19, maybe.
Yeah, 19, but that's not.
But I'm assuming, I you know, and it's unfair to assume this, but I'm assuming, based on how the playoffs are going and based on his history at Talladega, he's probably going to crash. I mean, I don't see him getting a good finish. So
you say he's plus 19, and that's great, 19 points. And Kyle Petty made this point on the NBC Sports Post Race show. Half those points got erased. He had a double that margin going into today, and it's gone now. 1 race, 19 points gone, thereabouts. Like, so it can go like that. And especially at Talladega. And the thing, I will say this though. I think I want to give him credit. I don't have the number in front of me, but he has won quite a few stages at Talladega and Daytona. I think Daytona more so these last few years. Like he's done a really good job. That doesn't finish these races necessarily, but he has done a good job of winning stages and getting points that way. So if you can do that, that can help mitigate any issues you may have. You go get 10 points in stage 1, 10 points in stage 2. That's 20 more points. That's great. So there's more ways to do this than just finishing, but I want to see this team just have a qualifying in the top 10, run in the top 10, no issues. Like, where is this team that through the really since late spring was the team to beat? Like, it's just absent right now.
Well, it still seems like the team to beat is Denny Hamlin.
Yes.
Larson had a phenomenal day today. He had the fastest car, he had speed, but Hamlin, I mean, even though that was pretty severe door damage, I got an up close look at that afterwards from his pit road incident with Ty Gibbs, and I mean he's very lucky at the spot where it got hit because it wasn't on the wheel, it was right in front of it, and but he said after the race like his car didn't handle as well, and it was still a top 3 car.
Yeah.
So.
What is Gibbs doing there? Like, I just don't get that. That was the one. That's like a rookie mistake, I guess.
I don't know. I never really saw
a
replay of it to see what could be done differently there, but that wasn't good. Certainly wasn't good. But still, so Hamlin finishes 5th. He should have finished better. They ended up taking 2 tires. They were the first one off pit road with 2 tires. They did not think at all that 14 cars were going to stay out in front of them. He gets a couple cautions there to get back up to 5th. So he sort of, came out around where he was running, so, within a few spots. But, as he said afterwards, a good call is determined by what the other people do. And they didn't think that 14 people were going to stay out in front of them there. So, probably cost him a couple points, but he's still in really good spot. He's the top guy in points, not named William Byron. Byron's already locked in, obviously, now. So it's sort of like Hamlin in points, and then even Chris Buescher's the next guy in points, but even Buescher's like 15 points behind Hamlin. So Denny's got plus 30 something to the cut line at this point. He's obviously a great super speedway racer. You would think he'd be able to go to the Roval and do just fine. But, it feels like this was a really big day for them, or a big thing to check off for them to make sure that nothing crazy bad happened, and just to get through this. And because this is a weird round, with Talladega and the Roval in it, it's all about, for the teams that are like the truly strong teams, they want to get to round 3 because they think they can perform well at 2 intermediate tracks plus Martinsville, right? The teams that are not as strong, they're like, "Ooh, I love this round, this crazy round, because we want it to be crazy," right? So, I think for a team like the 11 team just surviving today and getting a solid finish, it's fine. It could have been better, but they're still, to me, the favorite at this point.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they've had speed, they had execution. It's hard to blame them for their teammate running into them on pit road, which probably shouldn't have happened. They're plus 37 going into Talladega. Denny's going to be in the mix. He's going to be one of the favorites to win there. They could theoretically even clinch leaving Talladega without winning, depending upon how many points they get and where everyone else falls. This team is in a great spot. They continue to knock out good finishes, continue to bring race-winning cars to the track now, 4 straight races in each of the playoff races. There's not much to say about them, but you might as well just pencil them into the round 3, because I think that's the situation they're in right now. This team looks really, really good, and I think they're a Final 4 contender.
So what do we do with William Byron then? Because, look, he won the race. He's won 6 races now this year. He'd only had 4 career wins before this season. He's doing great. I mean, but it's like, for much of this race, I don't even know where he was. Like, I don't think he was close to the top 10 for a while, was he? I mean, he wasn't really a factor at times. Then he I'm not sure how he got up there. He kind of I assume they made some good pit calls. He was part of the pit call that worked out late, where you know, the guys that stayed out and all that for the track position. And you know, he takes advantage of that late restart, makes a great move, wins the race. So yeah, you know, you feel good about William Byron again and his chances and all this stuff. But where do you put him in the power rankings of where, you know, where we stack up? You know, we were saying Hamlin is first, you know, Larson's up there. Do you put Byron above or below Larson?
So to answer your question, William Byron's average running position in this race was 13th. For comparison's sakes, Denny Hamlin's was 6th, Bubba Wallace was 4th. So that kind of tells you William Byron's day. But the fact that this team is really good at getting better as a race goes on. They don't, when things, you know, they may start the race bad with a car, something may go wrong with them, whatever. They don't panic, they don't melt down. They just figure out a way to put themselves in a position to maximize their day. They're really, really good at that. And I think looking at their body work this year, the fact that they have 6 wins and all the playoff points they've amassed, and I think right now I have them in my championship 4, and here's why. I look at now they can start looking ahead to round 3. Well, guess what's in round 3? There's a track in Las Vegas they won at earlier this year. There's a track at Homestead they've won at a couple of years ago, and they're really good at intermediate racetracks. And then they go to Martinsville, where William is really good at, and by the way, they won there last year. So these are 3 really, really good tracks. And now they have 2 basically bonus weeks. They can go out and kind of turn their attention forward and not have to worry about Talladega or Roval, which, by the way, they're still good at those racetracks. So they still have an opportunity to amass more bonus points. I think this team is in a great position now to kind of use all of what they've had going for them this year and what they've amassed. And then the fact that how that schedule sets up, I think them getting to Phoenix, which he won at earlier this year, by the way, I think their path to the Final Four is very clear right now.
But so do you put him above or below Larson?
I put him on the parallel. I mean, like the 3 I have right now. I mean, this seems like to change on a weekly basis, but it's fine. I mean, it's Larson, it's Hamlin, and it's Byron. I think those 3 are in really great shape. I'm yanking Truex out of there. I'm yanking Christopher Bell out of there. I know he was my championship pick. Had a good run today, but that team just still kind of scares me a little bit. I just think those 3, the 11, the 5, and the 24, has separated themselves in a playoff where a lot has gone wrong. They've largely done a good job. I know Larson crashed today, but they've done a good job of week to week having fast race cars consistently and not shooting themselves in the foot for the most part.
Yeah, and you bring up Bell, because I'm with you, right? Like, it seems like there's those 3 Truexes dropped off. Well, who do you put in that 4th spot? And, you know, Bell, like, he salvaged a good day, but he wasn't really running that well. For me, like, I think when I do these in my top 5 column, I do like a weekly power ranking of the 4. I think I'm going to put Chris Buescher in there, because even though he finished 14th today, like, he got, I think, 15 stage points or something like that. He scored the 4th most points of anybody today. And, you know, he's in a decent position, and he's still got good tracks coming up. You just feel like they're still running well quietly. You know, they don't have the flashy sort of speed that the top 3 have that we're talking about, but that would be the guy I would sort of slip in there right now, because I still haven't seen enough from like a Reddick or a Bubba or a Chastain to really consider them, you know, putting them in. And then the others, I mean, we could talk about it, but like Blaney takes himself out today with the speeding penalty.
Again, another playoff, another self-induced mistake.
That is really painful for them, because they were
horribly painful.
They had gotten the track position after starting the race bad. They flipped the track position, and they had kept it all day,
even despite not having a fast race car.
Right, for sure. And you know, they were up there, and like, man, that is so painfully costly. And then, of course, as it happens, once you get back there, you're in traffic, then he gets caught up in a wreck, right? So it's ouch. And then the Kyle Busch thing, you know, I really was already starting to long ago lose faith in that team. They just feel like they have no momentum, no confidence. Something's always happening to them. And yet again, it happens today. It's like he's going for the lead and making moves. And it's like, oh, well, he just lost some spots. And he's saying, I don't know, I think something's going on my tire. And they're like, no, can you just stay out? You probably just have stuff on your tires, which is what I thought. I thought he probably went up in the dirty stuff and got stuff on his tires. And now his car feels weird. But sure enough, something happened to his tire because he crashes and that's it. And all of a sudden he's way below the cut line. Now, it could be a lot worse for him because I think he's only 17 below. So if you're going to finish 34th in the playoff opener of a round, to only be 17 down, that's actually not terrible, right? Because he's not done yet. He doesn't have to win.
No.
But it's I'm certainly not going to be sitting here putting him in my final four. And then the only one of the other drivers I think we didn't mention as a candidate there would be Keselowski, but I feel like Buescher's got the edge over Keselowski. So I don't know. What's your take on who are you putting in as your fourth right now?
Yeah, I will say this. Brad Keselowski, since like Loudon, has got the best average finish out of any driver this year. So that's a series best average finish since Loudon, or at least going into Texas. That's pretty impressive. Like he's been running really, really, really well, and he could have had 2 or 3 wins if things play out differently. I like where RFK is at. I think Chris Buescher today had a really good race, was running in the top 10 for the most part. Things didn't go away. I agree with you on the Kyle Busch thing. They're snowballers. They're a snowball team. When things go wrong, it just keeps snowballing and it gets worse and worse and they can't get out of their way. Instead of figuring out the problem and getting it, correcting it and moving forward, it's like, no, it's going to go completely haywire. And then the next thing you know, something like today happens where they end up in the wall. It's frustrating because they have speed in their race car. They obviously have speed in their race car, but they just can't stay out of their way. And that is worrisome to me. Now they can win. Kyle won at Talladega earlier this spring, but he was really fast at Daytona, but his record in super speedway races is iffy, right? And the Roval, certainly he's a factor there, but I just don't have any confidence that this team can really honestly get out of round 2. And if they get to round 3, it's like you just feel like something is going to knock them out and they're just going to end up having a bad, disastrous day and it's going to be done for them. You mentioned who else? Chris Buescher, Brad Keselowski, liked them both. Tyler Reddick, I think, was the other one you mentioned.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, who are you putting up in your fourth?
I don't know. I like Reddick a lot. If Reddick can get to round 3, I like him at Vegas. I really like him at Homestead, man. Like he is so good there. He can go there and have good finishes to start the playoff at Vegas and Homestead and maybe get a win. He's going to punch his way in. If not, you just finish in the top 5 there and go to Martinsville and survive. You're in a good spot. I like them. I like him a lot, and I've said this before.
But have you seen where they're on points though? Because he ended up losing, a good run today, and finishing the last car in the lead lap, and now he's behind Bubba in points. He's only 3 out.
Yeah,
but it just feels like they had been faster and they had momentum, and it just sort of slipped away. I don't know. He's going to have good, he can't crash it. I mean, I guess he could, because he, like you said, he could go to the Roval. He's a phenomenal road course racer and he could win it, but I don't know. He's really got it. He's got him. I'm worried about him making out of this round before I can say, I mean, now if he does make it out of this round, I think he could be a legit Final Four threat for sure, because Homestead is very tempting to look at him there. But
very tempting. Can we talk about Ross Chastain for a second?
Yeah. So I got to tell you about this. So.
Oh, all right. Story time.
Well, no, not really. But I had to ask Ross afterwards. I was like, how? Okay. So you're up there and you lose. He had a throttle sensor go bad. And so he said he thought they were going to come out about 8th or so off pit road, and the throttle sensor, it just wasn't working. So he basically stalls the car and they lose all these spots and they go back to like 29th or whatever. Right. So then on the next stop, I think so I was like, how did you work your way back up from 29th all the way up there? So I think basically they had waited on fuel on the next stop, so they didn't have to take more later. They'd taken 2 tires, and he said there was a couple restarts that didn't go well, and he said he had one of these, and I don't know which one it was, or if they showed it on TV, if I missed it, but he said he had some sort of phenomenal restart where he like hooked the bottom and he passed like 7 cars or something. So that really worked out. And then, toward the end, as everybody stays out and everything, he is able to get back up there and ends up finishing second. So on a day where they were running 30th at one point, like legit 30th and looking like in serious trouble, way below the cut line, he leaves 6th in points, and he has 12 points to the good. So that is huge turnaround. And Trackhouse ends up getting double top 10 on it again, where it was like Suarez at one point was stuck in the grass and
had a good run going. We were in the top 10, spun out on pit road, and then rallied back.
Yeah. So, boy, Chastain, he's something about that team where you just, for me, I'm just like, nah, they're gritty, man. I don't think they have the speed, but they find ways to keep getting good finishes somehow. I don't know how.
I don't know how they do it either. They figure it out. You can go back to Martinsville last playoff. It looked like they were out, and Ross decides to run the wall, and next thing you know, they seem to have found something. They don't have the same level of speed they had earlier this year. They're not quite there yet, but they seems like they're knocking on that door. And without that issue, without the sensor issue, you feel like they really had an opportunity to really kind of possibly win this race, because it seemed like they were in the mix. So we'll see how this goes. And Ross is good at super speedways. I feel like I say that a lot about a lot of guys, but you want to Talladega last spring, he's going to have an opportunity to be in the mix again. He was in the mix in the spring here this year. Was in the win. So he's going to have a really good opportunity to go there and get some stage points and put himself in a good spot. I like the trending, where this team is up. If I'm not liking how Martin Truex Jr.'s team is going in the wrong direction, I feel like this one team is the opposite, and they're kind of starting to go up.
Yeah, and I still don't feel like they're going to make the Final Four, because they have it's such a tall order at this point, especially with their lack of playoff points. But they're going to give themselves a shot. Somehow they figure out a way to.
And I will say, like, their speed they showed on this intermediate racetrack, right?
Yeah.
This bodes well for Vegas in Homestead, where 2 tracks where Ross last year finished second in both of those races. So I'm not putting him in my Final Four, but I can make a case why I could see it happening.
Yeah. Anybody else that you want to talk about? Boy, I will say Eric Jones. What a run. What a fantastic
run. That team, man, has been on the upswing. They've had a lot of speed in their race cars.
It's unfortunate because and it was sort of the same thing that happened to Hamlin, where, Hamlin takes 2 tires there along with a few others. Jones takes 4 tires, and he's the first on 4 tires. But clearly they thought the same thing as Hamlin's team, where, there's not going to be 14 people that stay out here, right?
Did you see what they tweeted?
No,
I don't know if you saw this. So there was a clarification on this. He was told to do, he was running behind Larson at the 5. He was told to do whatever the 5 did. And Kyle Larson looked like he was going to go down pit road and then did the fake. Right. And stayed on the racetrack. And the 43, by that time, they were already committed. So he couldn't reverse it. That is what bit them, unfortunately. Man, they had a great car, though. And again, they 3rd place at Kansas. They had a fast race car, too, at Darlington. Fast race car at Bristol. They had a mechanical issue there, put them back. This team is bringing fast race cars on a near weekly basis, and they're knocking on the door here.
Yeah, and Hocevar, had he not hit the wall.
Hocevar too, man.
He still finished 16th, but he's probably going to get close to the top 10 again.
Yeah,
he's really on it. Legacy is just really taking the step up. All this despite being with a lame duck manufacturer.
I know. I think it was Steve Letarte on the broadcast today had a great comment, and he's right. Basically, how Legacy's switching to Toyota next year. Basically, they've been cut off from the Chevrolet resources, right? And he goes, Chevrolet might want to turn that faucet back on to see if it can go the other way because they found something and they might be able to help the other Chevy teams. And honestly, they're right. Like whatever they're doing, it's working right now. They're outrunning quite a few Chevy teams.
Yeah, that's a great point. Chevy, I mean, they could use that info in those setups, I'm sure. That's really, I unfortunately I didn't hear any of the TV broadcast today, so I'm a little bit in the dark on what was talked about. So hopefully I'm not like repeating too much of
you're great.
anything that was on there. You want to talk about was it a good race poll now, or was there anything else from Texas?
We think we covered. Let me check my notes really quick here. 1 second, sorry. No, we have covered everything on my list.
Okay.
All right.
Well, as typically is, I'm sure there's something I'll forget after. And as soon as I press end on this, I sit there and think for a minute and I go, dang it, we didn't talk about whatever. But anyway, at least we won't forget that was it a good race poll this week. Unfortunately, you have lost again. What's going on, Jordan? You were on second.
Listen, I am just nearing. I am the Martin Truex Jr. of our poll. That is it. Like great regular season, win the regular season championship. Everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. I need to get my bleep together. Like what is going on? We're better than this. We got bad guesses. We got bad intel, bad research. The boys back at the shop aren't helping me out at all. Like it is gone bad. It is gone sideways. We're just trying to get a top 10 finish here to get our head above water. Yeah, it's not going well.
Well, now that you're not, cheating.
I didn't cheat. I'm so tired of this. This is not cheating. And I almost thought about putting out another thing today.
I bet you did.
I did. I may have pulled a few people actually, and the responses actually were all. No, I mean I polled people whether I should put a tweet out or not, and they said I should.
Where privately you pulled people? Because I didn't see where this.
No, I asked people, some friends of mine, do you think I should put a tweet out there to kind of crowdsource a little bit? And they said, yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, because ball don't lie, and I will win anyway, just like I did on the last one where you tried to pull these shenanigans. Anyway, unfortunately, I do have to guess first because I really don't want to this week. I am
really fascinated. Like I am very genuinely curious, and I will say, like I just want to hear what you have to guess. I'm not going to sway you. You go ahead.
Well, okay. I feel by far the least confident about this guess that I felt in weeks. I feel like I've had a decent, like going into the podcast lately, I'm like, okay, I think I know what people are about going to say or how they felt. I really don't know. I know how they felt before when it looked like Larson was going to win by 7 seconds. People didn't like it. I don't know how the ending and the craziness changed the perception of that, or if it did. People are already have a predisposition to not like Texas. So they're not really going to keep an open mind for the most people are not. They're going to say this track sucks. And then they're going to see the racing that they think confirms their opinion and kind of go with that. So it's just not going to be a high thing. Plus it wasn't that good of a race. It was fine. So where does that leave me? This is so tough. I don't feel good about this at all. 53%.
Whoa.
Oh.
Did you say 53?
Oh, are you saying that's too high?
No, did you say 53?
Yeah.
Okay. Whoa.
Why? What's the reaction for?
I think that's way low.
Oh, you think it's low?
I think it's, and I will say this, like, having conversations with people about the race and how it was unfolding, they were more enthused about it than I thought. Like I thought they were, I thought I was kind of in the middle, like how this is going to go. And I think the feedback I've gotten from people is like this, they were actually for a Texas, and again, low bar for a Texas race. This actually wasn't bad. So I think you're way off.
Oh dear.
You went 53. I'm just going to hedge. I'm going to say 60. And I'm gonna feel okay about that.
So you were gonna go like What were you going to go originally? If I mean,
I was probably going to go as high as like 72, 73. I didn't feel good about it. It felt dirty, felt really dirty. Didn't like it, but yeah. But I'm also the idiot who can't win. So what do I, don't go off what I'm saying.
wow, you thought this race was in the 70s?
I didn't think it was, but I think other people are more enthused about it than I was. I'm predispositioned to not liking Texas anyway, but it
Oh my
was
God.
better than I think tomorrow's number is going to be fascinating. I think 53 is. I think that's low. I maybe I'm. You know what? Listen. My recent
Well,
track
I
record is
have
not
no
good.
idea. I really don't. I really have no
I don't
idea.
envy you
I
having
don't
to
have
pick
a feel
first.
for
So.
this one. Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. Whatever you would have picked, I would have gone 0.1 on either side of you.
I thought about just going like a 55, but I've got class.
Well, you don't want to
Morals,
win. You're like
ethics.
Truex. You're too clean.
Too clean. Yeah.
You're too clean. You race too clean. Sometimes you just need to race aggressively and
I got to be more dirty.
not give anybody any room.
Yeah.
So it happened. All right. Well, since I didn't think of anything else to talk about that I thought we were particularly missing, guess we'll wrap it up for this week. You'll be at Talladega next week. That'll be fun. I'll be sad not being there this year for the fall race, but can't do them all. I just
one of my favorite races of the year.
I just burned my budget this week on tacos. Lots of tacos.
What kind of tacos?
Well, I went to several different taco places, but I did go to Velvet Taco last night. Have you been to one of the Velvet Tacos?
Yeah, they got them up here in Charlotte. They're fine. They're just
look. It was the place that was open. It was near my hotel. I know it's a chain. I know it's not authentic Tex-Mex, but I went there. Okay.
I got a friend of mine.
I did get authentic. What?
I got a friend of mine who likes them a lot. She likes them, and she took me there once, and I was just like, "This is what you're typing up? Like, really? This is
really? You don't like?
Disappointed.
They have all sorts of different. They're like crazy flavors.
I mean, the menu's creative, but it's not. It doesn't blow me away. The taste isn't spectacular. There's much better taco places.
Well, obviously there are, and here in Texas. So, anyway, hopefully I can go find another one right now.
Good luck.
But anyway, I hope you enjoy not eating tacos in Birmingham, eating probably lots of Buc-ee's. Oh,
no, I only do Buc-ee's for coffee in the morning.
No, I thought breakfast tacos.
No, not only when I'm driving with you, because then you can drive and then I can eat. If I don't do it by myself.
Oh, that's right. I learned last week on our drive that you will not drive and eat.
No,
it's a fascinating thing.
Well, two reasons. One, I feel like it's unsafe, especially kind of drive we're going on through last week, which is dark roads, mountains, that kind of thing. Don't like it. Two, I don't want to spill. I don't want to get it on me.
That's what it really is. You don't want to spill on your fancy clothes. You don't want to spill Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Don't want to spill on me. Sure as heck don't want to spill on my car either.
Because I was hyping up the honey hot pimento Chick-fil-A sandwich to you, and you're like, "Oh, I want to get one of those." And then we tried to go last week on the way, and the dining room was closed. It was drive-through only, and you're like, "You know what? I'm not going to eat."
No, nope.
I'm like, "What? You were just all about getting the sandwich." You're like, "Nope, I'm not going to eat."
No, I don't want to spill on my clothes. I don't want to spill on what I was wearing. No way.
You were wearing a Adidas tracksuit.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like a...
Yeah, you get a grease stain on that, though. That thing, it'll be noticeable. It's not going to get out.
All right. Anyway, everybody, thanks as always for listening. We appreciate you. Again, it was cool to meet some of you at Tweet Up. Thanks for those kind words, as always. And we will talk to you next time on the Teardown. See you, everybody.